Hey guys, welcome to a new reading vlog. So this week, or in this reading vlog, I'm going to be talking about this book, Howl's Moving Castle. Full disclosure, I have actually already read it. I am filming this intro after the fact. I do have a bunch of footage of me reading the book and just footage from throughout the week as I read the book, but I didn't actually sit down to collect my thoughts now until the end. So I am going to film this in different parts, and then I will film this as one, and then I'll break it up into different parts throughout the vlog so you can kind of see my thoughts as I went through and the different like sections that I read. I did break this up into like 3 or 4 chunks. It is about 400 and something pages long, I believe. Yeah, it's about almost 430 pages long, so I broke it up into like 4 sections of 100 and something pages. So I did write down some notes, just what I thought about each section and how I felt about it as I went along. And so I'm going to, like I said, record one clip of my thoughts, and then I will break it down and split them up throughout the vlog. But I know that this book is pretty beloved. I know the anime is really beloved. I have several friends and my cousin who all love this and have been trying to have me read it for a very long time and watch the anime. I know Studio Ghibli produced the anime of it, and I know that that is a very beloved production company, I think is what they are. And I have seen some clips of their movies and they are beautiful. I have just never really delved into it myself, but I did want to change that up. My brother is a big fan too and has been telling me that I need to look into them, and I know he really loves Howl's Moving Castle as well. So yeah, I was really excited to get into this. I did find it at the library a couple weeks ago. I think I included the footage of that in a weekly vlog. I believe it was last week's weekly vlog that I went to the library and found this and decided to do a reading vlog on it. So yeah, welcome to the video. I hope you like it. In this video I am going to be reading the book and, like I said, updating on my thoughts as I go along, but I'm also going to be watching, hopefully if I can find it, be watching the movie. I do want to do that. I have not done that yet as of today when I'm recording, but I'm hoping to be able to find it and be able to do that maybe this weekend. So yeah, let's get into the vlog.
When you're busy dealing with groceries, you can miss a few.
So in the first little section that I read about 100 and something pages was the first little chunk that I read. And the first, as you can see, I did tab somewhat. This is actually a library book, so I didn't annotate, and I didn't tab as much as I would have liked. I do want to eventually get my own copy and maybe go back through and either reread it or kind of look up quotes and stuff online that I can tab then. So the first 50 pages or so. So this book, for anybody who has not read it, is about a girl named Sophie, who is the eldest of 3 children, which is something that I found really relatable. I am also the oldest. I am the oldest of 4. I have 3 younger brothers. And Sophie, because she's the oldest, she has this mindset that she has to kind of settle in life, and there isn't much that she can do with her life. There isn't a lot expected of her, and that a lot of the family's expectations and society's expectations fall more on her younger siblings, especially the youngest of the 3, and that nobody really expects much from her. So she has kind of allowed that mindset to take over, and because of that, she doesn't really have much ambition. She doesn't really know what she wants to do with herself. And so in the first part of the book, when Sophie's father dies, her stepmother kind of comes to raise the 3 girls, but it ends up being that she cannot afford to take care of all 3 girls. The family owns and runs a hat shop, and so the stepmother sends away the 2 sisters, Martha and Letty, sends the 2 sisters away to be apprentices for a witch and a baker, I believe. Yeah, in a bakery. And then Sophie herself stays and is going to be the one to run the hat shop because she is the eldest. And she's kind of inheriting the business, the family business. So there's a few scenes, I guess, where Sophie is being run down. She's working very hard. She's basically the only one running this hat shop. Her stepmother has kind of disappeared and is nowhere to be found, doesn't help her, and so a lot of the work falls on Sophie. And she becomes very kind of tired and like run down, and she sees one of her sisters, and she goes to the bakery to see her sister and discovers that Letty and Martha have actually switched places. They somehow performed a spell that made them look like each other so they could switch places, and one would stay in the bakery and the other would go to be an apprentice for a witch. So as she's visiting her sisters, the sister tells her that she believes that the stepmother is taking advantage of her, that she is being taken advantage of, and that the stepmother knows that Sophie will do whatever she asks of her because she doesn't have her own ambitions and her own goals, and that she can just leave Sophie to run the shop, and that's what she will do. So Sophie goes back to the hat shop. She sees her stepmother. She has her sisters like advice and words playing in her head, and she decides to ask for pay. She asks to be paid because she's not being paid to run this hat shop. and the stepmother kind of blows her off, says, yeah, we'll talk about it later, and then never brings it up again. So Sophie starts thinking, oh, well, maybe my sister's right. Maybe I really am being taken advantage of. So suddenly, in this first section, probably around the 60-page mark, or maybe before that, maybe like the 40-page mark, Sophie is turned into an old woman. A witch called the Witch of the Waste comes into the shop and accuses Sophie of something and turns Sophie into an old lady. So Sophie runs away, and she ends up coming upon the moving castle. So the moving castle is often seen throughout the countryside. It's nothing new, but it is rumored that the wizard who lives in the castle likes to eat young girls, and he will lure them into his castle and abduct them and eat their hearts. So as a young girl, the moving castle scared Sophie, and she would stay away from it. But now that she's an old woman, she thinks that the wizard won't want anything to do with her, and as she has nowhere else to go, and she has no ambitions, she is not seeking her fortune, as she says in the book, she decides to take up in the castle. So she goes to the castle, she kind of chases it down, and she kind of forces her way into the castle. So the next section that I read is kind of about what happens once Sophie's in the castle, and kind of how things are different than what she expected.
When you're busy dealing with groceries, you can miss a few.
So as an old woman, Sophie is less likely to take like the verbal abuse of Howl. She's very quick to snap back at him, which I really liked. And she quickly, like I said, just kind of inserts herself into the household and doesn't really give Howl a chance to say whether she can stay or not. She decides she's going to stay, and that's just that. One thing that I really loved about the book was that it's very like fantastical and magical. Obviously there are witches and there are wizards. There is a talking fireplace, basically, or the fire within the fireplace. So I really loved the fantastical and magical elements. In that way, it kind of reminded me of like a series of unfortunate events in the like whimsy and magical like realism aspects of it. Howl reminds me of Count Olaf, but not in the villainy kind of way, but just in the like mischievous, stubborn, like everything is kind of for his purpose kind of way. But yeah, I really loved, and the thing about this book is that it weaves like the fantasy and the realism perfectly. So that's another thing, the castle itself. It turns out as Sophie like adjusts to life in the castle, she realizes that the door to the castle can be changed so that it opens to different lands and different dimensions. So the doorknob of the castle can be turned, and depending on which way it's turned is decides like where the door will open to. So it may open to a different dimension, a different land. The castle itself may be located in one place, but the door will actually open to somewhere else. And it turns out that Howl is actually from Wales. He has a sister. He has his family that live in Wales. Later on in the book, we see that he is like a rugby player, or was a rugby player. And so the door partly leads to Wales. And so, like I said, it really weaves the two different like stories together well, the two different types of stories, the kind of more not contemporary, but like more realistic story in with the fantastical and magical elements. So I really like that. Something for me that I really loved about this, like I said, was the banter. I'm a sucker for like a found a family like type of dynamic. And so as Sophie spends more time in the castle, and she becomes kind of the servant, but not really like fully not in like submissive kind of way, but she uses that as her way to stay. She tells Hal that she will be his maid, basically, and she will clean up the house because it's the castle, because it is very old and dirty inside. And there's a lot of banter about her moving things and like touching house things, and somehow it's now in a place he didn't want it, or he won't be able to find something. There's a part where she tries to go and clean his bedroom, and he like shows up and surprises her and tells her that she's not, like, that's the one room she's not allowed in, basically. So I really love the found family aspect in it. That was something that I wasn't expecting. I really loved the relationship that developed between ᴇᴏᴏᴅ and Sophie. They became somewhat dependent on each other. ᴇᴏᴏᴅ is typically only listens to Howl. And the kind of thing that they say in the beginning is that like the castle will only accept people that ᴇᴏᴏᴅ will listen to. And so somehow that person, one of those people, ends up being Sophie. So Sophie is able to get ᴇᴏᴏᴅ to do as she asks of him, basically, when typically he only listens to Howl. So they end up coming together to form a contract that Sophie will help ᴇᴏᴅ break his contract with Howl to release himself from being stuck in the fireplace, and ᴇᴏᴅ will help her out of her curse from the Witch of the Waste that makes her old. So I thought that I would read some of the tabs that I had, or go through them and see kind of what I tabbed. Like I said, I didn't do as many as I would have liked because this is a library book, so I'm gonna have to go out and pull all these out anyways. So I didn't want to fill it up and then have to go and pull them out and kind of waste the tabs and everything. So there was a part around the 200 page mark where Howl gets a cold after being out in like a rainstorm, and he is upstairs in his bedroom, and he is like vying for Sophie's attention. Basically, he is coughing very loudly and blowing his nose very loudly and complaining and saying, he keeps saying that he's dying, and so he's very much playing it up to get Sophie's attention so that she will pay attention to him while he's sick. So typical man, basically. I really thought that that part was cute. And then let's see what else. So the thing about how is that in each, so the door opens up, I believe, to like 4 different lands, and in each land he is known by a different name because he likes to flirt with the women of the town, and he will get them to fall in love with him, and he courts them until they show him the affection back and until they have fallen for him, and then he disappears and runs away. That's his thing, is that he runs away. He likes to there's a word that for it, I forget if they say he like slides away or he slips away just in time, but that is what he does throughout all of the lands. So one of the lands in Port Haven, a person who lives in Port Haven comes to the castle and knocks on the door and is asking for potions, because that is what Michael does. He, as Howl's assistant or apprentice, will create potions and sell them to the different citizens of these different lands. And so somebody comes to the door and sees Sophie, but of course they're seeing an old woman, so they think that she is a witch. And so Sophie doesn't correct them, and so now there's a rumor going around that now Howl is not only a wizard, but he also has a witch living in the castle with him. So something else that I loved as far as like the characters is that they're all kind of flawed. Howl, as I said, it can be very self-centered and very selfish. A lot of his he likes to throw tantrums, which results in him covering things in this like green slime, and he mainly throws tantrums when things don't go his way or when something happens that he doesn't like. Sophie can be very, like I said, hard headed and stubborn, but she also is like I said, has that just mind state that like she's not good for anything, basically. She's not enough to do anything because she's the eldest. Michael is very subservient to Howl, and he kind of relies on him, even though he himself has learned to make these potions and these spells and things. And ɪḻsᴛᴏᴅ, I think, is kind of the most selfless of them all. He kind of does what he can to take care of them. He very much takes care of them within the castle. And the relationship between ɪḻsᴛᴏᴅ and Howl's really sweet. They are, even though they kind of banter back and forth also, they have known each other for a very long time, and ɪḻsᴛᴏᴅ does what he can to take care of Howl. Another thing that I really like about Sophie is that she is very much like all about her sisters. Even as an old woman, one of the doors does lead to where Sophie's originally from, where her sisters are. And I don't want to give too many spoilers, but the sisters do play a part in the story. But a lot of what Sophie does is to get back to her sisters and to keep them safe. And so I really love that about her as well. I think the characters are probably what I loved most about this book. Though the idea of like the door opening to different lands and like dimensions is really interesting. I think that would make a super cool like separate book, like if you changed it up, obviously. I think that's a really cool concept. So, like I said, I have finished the book. I finished it last night. I read that last little section. There was parts towards the end where Sophie would mention kind of being jealous of the women that Howl was courting. And it wasn't, in the beginning it was more like, you know, he's being a bad man, the rumors about him are true, he's hurting these women, he's leading them on. And then slowly over time it became, well, if Howl is paying attention to these women, then he's not paying attention to me. And he's giving them his attention, and more like jealousy came into play, which I found really interesting because I wasn't actually expecting that. For some reason, even though Sophie is an old woman for most of the book, I for some reason kind of saw her, like in my mind's eye, more of as a child. So towards the end, or at the end I should say, Sophie eventually does become herself again, or back to her own age. And it is kind of hinted at a romance between Sophie and Howl, and I hadn't been expecting that, but because I didn't expect it, it actually made it even sweeter, and it was really cute. And I believe that their story continues on. This is a series, I believe there's 3 books, so their story continues on in the next books. So I am thinking that I will continue to read the rest of the series, and it may not be right away, because I do have a lot of other reading vlogs going on. But I do eventually hope to get to read those as well, because I'm interested to see what happens with Sophie and how now that Sophie is back to herself and people don't think that she's Howl's mother any longer. So yeah, I really liked it. Like I said, I really loved how like whimsical it was, and the fantastical elements. There's monsters in here. There's obviously a witch, there's wizards, there's magic, there's like obviously a moving castle. There is like these boots, I forget what they call them, but there's boots that they put on, and every step you take takes you like 7 miles away, I think, or something. So as you walk, you're traveling like very quickly. So there's a bunch of different like fantastical and magical elements in this that I really liked. So yeah, that is it for now. I am going to go put into Goodreads my rating and what I thought, and hopefully I will be able to find the movie to watch and kind of give my review on that. So I will show you guys that.